Hey, are you inundated with stories about narcissists online? Like everyone was a narcissist. My husband or wife was a narcissist. My parents were narcissists. Everyone's a narcissist. Have you wondered whether it's a little bit overdone or maybe it's not? So we're going to explore that today. As somebody who used to teach psychology at community college, I used to teach my students about personality disorders, and narcissistic personality disorder is one of the famous ones in that realm. And we're going to talk about how prevalent it really is and how many people maybe mistake narcissistic personality disorder for some other things. So this topic really became apparent to me because somebody asked me a question when they saw the video I did about forgiving my mother. And they asked me, do you think your mother was a narcissist? And that's a valid question, and it's a good question, because in some ways she did have some characteristics of it, but she didn't have other key characteristics of it. And so I don't really think my mother was a true narcissist. I'm going to give away the punchline right there. I don't really believe she was, but later in the video I'm going to talk about why I think people assume that people with some of the characteristics she had are narcissists. So we're going to get to that in a little while. Again, I'm sitting outside. It's a beautiful day. You know, unlike the last time I did a video out here, it is 70-something degrees. I got my spring clothes on. It's great. If you hear a noise, it's some traffic that goes by, and also we have a flagpole with a flag on it right near me, and sometimes it clangs against the cord clangs against the pole. So bear with me. So let's talk about where the idea of narcissistic disorder came from. It's actually called narcissistic personality disorder, and it comes out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is put out by the American Psychiatric Association. It's basically the diagnostic guidelines for a whole bunch of disorders. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is probably one of the most famous personality disorders, and it's gotten a lot of notoriety over the years because, you know, a lot of celebrities in the past, a lot of well-known figures, political figures, things like that have had narcissistic personality disorder. So you often see it in people that are really famous because they crave the limelight. They crave that attention. And so very often it makes it seem like it's a lot more common than it probably is. According to statistics, only about 1 to 2% of the adult population probably has narcissistic personality disorder. 1 to 2%. So that means 1 or 2 out of every 100 people. So, I mean, it's not rare, but it's also not common. So in a minute, I'm going to talk about the diagnostic criteria for that and basically how we kind of decide whether somebody is a narcissist or not. So let's discuss what the 9 diagnostic criteria are for narcissistic personality disorder, and the fact that basically to meet the criteria for being diagnosed a narcissist, you have to meet at least 5 out of the 9. Now, a lot of the 9, as I go through them, are very interrelated, so it wouldn't be that hard to probably meet 5 out of the 9, or all of them, basically, for a lot of narcissists. So the first one is a sense of grandiosity. Basically, they just think they're everything. They're better than sliced bread. They are the ultimate person. They can do it all. So that's the first one. The second one is feeling like they're really better than a sense of superiority over other people, that they feel like they're better than other people, that they basically, you know, somehow they were born with extra gifts or something like that, so they deserve, you know, they just are better than other people. So then that relates to another one, which is a sense of entitlement. They're entitled to more. To me, this is one of the key diagnostic criteria, is a sense of entitlement, because I know we talk a lot about people feeling entitled, especially in the last 20 years, but being entitled but not having the other criteria does not necessarily mean you're a narcissist. So I will say that, but it definitely is a key one to being a narcissist. narcissists also have fantasies about, like, just, having this great life and, having things so much better than everyone else. And they really do believe that they can make that happen. And actually, often they can make that happen. So it's interesting, but they tend to dream really big. Let's just put it that way. The dreams are really big. Another one I think is really key to diagnosing people with this is a need for excessive admiration. They need people telling them all the time how great they are. They are fantastic. They are the best at whatever it is they do. They're the best actor, they're the best businessman, they're the best politician. It doesn't matter what it is. They have to be the best. And so because of that, they need people to constantly fawn over them and tell them that. So that's another one that's really key. The next one is they're very manipulative, very exploitive of other people. And this, to me, is also a key characteristic. Anybody that you see that's a master manipulator is usually at least having some narcissism in them. But in general, this is a key characteristic of the disorder itself. Again, people can be exploitive because maybe they've learned to do that through maybe being in business or whatever, and they aren't necessarily narcissists, but it just goes hand in hand with being a narcissist. They are generally manipulative most of the time. This is where you see a lot of gaslighting that occurs by narcissists, is that they're very much, into making people believe whatever it is they want them to believe. Now, the last three diagnostic criteria, this one is also very important: lack of empathy. Lack of empathy. This is, to me, I think it's the single most telling thing about a narcissist, because the only other personality disorder that really has a lack of empathy to this degree are people with what's called antisocial personality disorder. And these are what we informally call, the sociopaths or psychopaths. So narcissists also have a lack of empathy. In other words, they really don't care what happens to other people. They don't care about other people's problems. They have no sense of compassion in them. And so this one, to me, is, I think, of all of the characteristics, this one is a key thing. When you see somebody with this, to me, they're either a narcissist or they have antisocial personality disorder, or both, actually. And you could technically have both. The last two characteristics are an envy of others. They envy other people and everything they've got. They can't stand it when somebody has more money or success or a house that's bigger than theirs, or, just anything more than they have. They cannot stand it. So they're always envious of that. They always have to play one-upmanship. They always have to have more in some way than the other person. And then the last characteristic is just a general sense of arrogance. They're very haughty. They're very arrogant. Again, they walk around with that attitude, which actually in our society serves them quite well, because people that generally act like they know what they're doing and they act with such arrogance, they usually do get what they want. So just being arrogant alone is not the thing that you would use to define somebody with narcissism. People can learn to be arrogant, as maybe they need to do that for whatever their job is or whatever, but generally it is something. When it's excessive arrogance, it does go hand in hand with this. Okay, so again, somebody only has to meet the 5 out of the 9 criteria to actually be diagnosed a narcissist, which isn't that hard to do, actually. So the thing is, there also is something, anytime you talk about personality disorders, you also have to take into account that there are what's called personality disorder traits. In other words, people can have traits of something, but it's not the full-blown disorder. Okay, let me say that again. You can have traits of something, anything, not just personality disorders. You can have traits of something, but it's not necessarily the full disorder. And I would say that a lot more people have narcissistic traits than actually are complete narcissists, if that makes sense. Now, I told you I'd come back to my mother on this and explain that. So I believe my mother had some narcissistic traits, but I do not believe she was a narcissist. So let me explain that. Of the traits I just went over, the things that I believe my mother had is I believe that she did think she was better than other people. There's some sense of superiority there that I believe she had. I also think she had, to some degree, a lack of empathy. Now, not a complete lack of empathy. I mean, I remember being a child and, my mother would be empathetic to me or comforting to me or whatever. I don't think she had a complete lack of empathy, but I do believe in general she did. I don't think she really cared about really what happened to anybody else, even her own 2 daughters. I mean, that's horrible to say, but I just think that was part of who she was. It wasn't as bad as somebody with complete narcissism, but she had at least those couple of traits and probably a couple of the others as well. I believe she was envious of other people in the sense that she always wanted more than I think she really had in the world. She wasn't really arrogant. I wouldn't say my mother was arrogant. I also wouldn't say that she felt particularly entitled. So maybe a little bit, but not. See, she was raised during the Great Depression. A lot of people that grew up in that generation did not really have a strong sense of entitlement anyway. So I kind of credit it to that she didn't really have that strong sense of entitlement. But anyway, my mother had some traits. So now let's discuss that in terms of another concept in narcissism called covert narcissism. You probably have heard about this. You've probably seen YouTube videos about this. You probably think that at some point in time you had either a parent or a spouse or somebody with covert narcissism. Now, covert narcissism, it could be kind of a semantic thing because to me, it kind of represents what I would say are narcissistic traits. In other words, these are people with more of a low-key narcissism. It kind of goes hidden. It's not really overt. Literally, it's covert instead of being obvious or overt. And so these people also can be manipulative. That was the other one I was going to say. Sorry, forgot to put that one in. My mother could be very manipulative, so that one definitely went with her. But anyway, these people can be very manipulative who are covert narcissists. They do a lot of passive-aggressive kinds of things. And but the interesting thing is they don't have like an outward kind of grandiosity or arrogance about them. So it's really easy to miss the narcissism with them. Now, again, I kind of chalk this up to it's probably traits versus like a full-blown thing. But it also could be, that for a long time in psychology, maybe we didn't really fully understand the different manifestations of this disorder. And it's certainly likely or possible, whatever, that this is really just a different kind of narcissistic disorder. And in that case, would there be a lot more covert narcissists? Yeah. Oh, yeah, probably. Definitely. And I think the lack of empathy, again, is a really good giveaway. Because anybody that's even a covert narcissist, you're not going to miss the lack of empathy. It's there. It's definitely there. When I was teaching psychology, I used to tell my students to, if you suspect that you are with a narcissist in any way, run. Do not walk the other way. Get out of there immediately. Because here's the thing about narcissists. While there are cognitive treatments, cognitive behavioral treatments, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, you'll hear a bunch of names of different things. My experience with it, people who have this don't really want to overcome it. They don't want to be rid of the problem, shall we say. And in fact, they rarely would seek help for it. I mean, somebody else might tell a therapist that this person really needs help, but they're not going to go get help for this. It's like antisocial personality disorder. They're not going to get help for that either. So the problem is, could it be helped? Yes. Is someone likely to overcome it? No. So that's the bad news. Now, a lot of times people wonder where this comes from. There's no clear answer to that. There's been some speculation in the last couple of decades that there might be a genetic link to this. It's mostly, though, caused, I believe, by childhood experiences. And one of the key things that causes a narcissist, they're both ends of a continuum, which means you can develop this disorder if you have way too much attention. In other words, you're coddled, everyone thinks you're fantastic from the time you're born, you're never criticized, you never have to pay for any of your actions, negative actions, nothing like that. So that's one end of the extreme. And then the other end are people that are completely overlooked and neglected, not given any attention, basically even shamed, ridiculed as children. It can develop from either end of that, really. And that's one thing that psychologists are, aware of. And so, but there is a mystery. All personality disorders, we don't have an absolute answer of why does this develop in some people and not other people. So anyway, if you've had any experience with narcissists, please drop a comment below. I'm sure a bunch of you have. I know I have had in my life. Like I said, I know my mother had traits of it. I would not have called her a full narcissist, but she definitely had some traits. So I'm very aware of it. I'm very, very cognizant of the disorder. Anyway, you know what to do right there. Yeah, right there. Anyway, until next time, be well, be kind. Keep moving forward and take care. Bye.